Well, welcome back. This is the second part of a two-part series. I'm going to extend my Harbor Freight 7x10 mini lathe to a 16-inch lathe. And this is what comes in the kit. It came from littlemacineshop.com, and the cost of the kit is $180, and the killer is the shipping. Shipping was near $40, so it's a significant part of the price. Not a complaint, just a fact of life. What it comes with is a small parts kit, which I haven't opened up yet. New lead screw and a new rack, and chip tray. Doesn't come with a backsplash. I guess we're going to reuse the old one or not use it at all. And so that's what, it comes with the instructions, of course. Which I had already, if you watched my previous video, I'd already printed out the instructions from online. We're doing a rack right now, and in the instructions. And this was a real head scratcher for a while. I had to read it half a dozen times before I finally got it, but they're telling you to position the rack, which I already did. Position the left edge of the rack, which is this edge, 1 3/4 inch from the headstock mounting hole. This is the headstock mounting hole from the right edge of the mounting hole to the left edge of the rack, 1 3/4 inch. I don't know if you could read the scale that fell down, but trust me, it's 1 3/4 inch. From the edge of the hole to the leading edge of that. Now, I already dimpled the first hole. They, in the instructions, are telling you to use a pair of C-clamps to hold the rack down, and then go along and dimple every one of them. But I think it'd be easier if you just dimple the first one. You could just hold it with your hand, dimple it with the drill bit, like they tell you to, with the largest bit you can find to fit through the hole. Put a dimple in there, and once you do that, I got a dimple in mine right there. Once you do that, drill and tap that hole, and you'll be all set. You can lock it down. You don't need any clamps. You can use the first one you drilled and tapped to hold it in place, and you can dimple the rest of them and drill them out. I'm going to use, or try to use, this product here. Came from Harbor Freight. It's a combination drill and tap, all in one. And I'm not stupid. I'm going to try this on the old casting first to make sure that it works. Because hard to believe, I have a few sets of metric taps, but I have no metric drills. Okay, I'm back, and I did what I said I was going to do, and that worked pretty good with 2 holes. I got one in there, and I got one in the far end. Didn't have to use any clamps, just held it in place with my thumb when I marked the first hole. And so now I'm just going to do the other 3. I wish I knew what size drill bit this is, but it's the largest one that'll fit in the hole. So I'll dimple those. And one other thing I did, by the way, I did use this is a Harbor Freight. I don't know what they call these things, but it uses impact. It's a center punch. And I did punch the holes also to make sure that they're in the right place. Okay, welcome back. Next part of the instructions have you putting on the tailstock and the slide and everything on the back of the assembly and they're going to have you drill holes for the pillow block and the lead screw, but there are other holes that have to be drilled before any of that heavy stuff gets installed. And I did notice one thing, and as a result of watching the video online of the other guy's video I mentioned once before, after he put the whole thing back together, he found that when he reinstalled the electrical box, there are two holes up on the top, a couple of flathead screws here that install this thing. The two holes on the bottom were missing. And I look at the instructions and they don't tell you to make any holes for them either. So I'm going to take the time to make those holes right now. So what I did was I put the headstock on, and I'm just going to loosely install it here so that I can screw the box on, and then I'll locate the holes that I need to drill, and I'll take this stuff off again. There are three cap head screws. If you recall, we removed them in the first video. So I'm just doing this just to align it. And there's one in the back. There's two in the front, one in the back, so that nothing falls off this thing. That should be enough. They're just on there loosely. And in case you're wondering what this is, it's a tack. I just put that on there. I'll talk about that a little later, but right now I'm not going to talk about that. That's a modification that I did. I did it to my mill, and now I'm going to do it to the tack here too. Okay, so I'm back, and I got the two holes drilled here for the power box. Welcome back. So I decided to get back to following the instructions here, but however, there are more holes to drill, and I'll show you where, but I wanted to get this out of the way. As you can see, I installed the carriage in accordance with the instructions and did all the gib adjustments. However, I didn't put the slide back on because I don't want to put it on. It's heavy and it's going to add weight to the assembly while I'm trying to maneuver it. I followed along with the instructions with the carriage up to step number 8, where it says install the apron using two M820 socket head cap screws. Leave the mounting screws loose. Well, it's not tapped for the apron, so you can't install the apron because there are no holes for it. Let's see if I got the apron over here. I believe this is the apron they're talking about. Fits over the top of the lead screw, to keep chips and stuff off the lead screw. So anyway, the casting is not tapped for this, so you can't install it. So we'll have to go back and locate it later after we get done drilling the holes for this. I moved ahead. I wanted to get this out of the way. So we're up to the step where it says position lead screw right now. So the carriage is back on. I positioned the lead screw. I used a clamp on the rear pillow block, and of course the proper clamp on the front. And this is not as hard to adjust as I thought it would be, but what it basically is that you run the carriage out to the end of the lead screw here. You sort of loosen up the clamp and let it self-adjust, and it will self-adjust. And then you run the carriage all the way back to the rear, and you do the same thing. You engage it and loosen the clamp and let it self-adjust, and you do it a couple times, but you'll get it to the point where it moves very smoothly. Now remember, this carriage only moves in one direction. It only moves right to left. So you don't want to be turning this thing, the lead screw, to force the carriage to move in the opposite direction, which would be in this direction. Okay? So what I did was I used a hand crank. Make sure that the handle's up here. Make sure the handle is up. Go to the rear. Loosen the clamp a little bit because the half nuts will hold it in place at this level. So go back as far as it will go, and then engage the forgive me, I can't see my own hands in my own camera here, but engage the half nut like that. And what I did was I used a socket. I don't have the right I've got a bolt in here. That's not the right hardware. It takes a hex nut or a hex screw, but I put the bolt in here so I could drive the shaft with my drill. And goes clockwise. The drill goes clockwise, and you could drive the carriage. Now I just stop every once in a while to make sure that it's nice and smooth, and it is. Go to the end here and to make sure again it's nice and smooth. If it isn't, if there's a little binding at the end here, loosen the clamp, let it self-level itself, tighten the clamp down again, do it again, go back to the other side, recheck, re-verify that, go back and forth until finally you have smooth operation going back and forth. Again, don't move this with the, don't move it in this direction with the gear. And this is ready to go. This right where it is right now. I've already dimpled the two brackets, one on the bottom and then one on the top here because I couldn't get the clamp in the right place there. But okay, welcome back. Looking at this apron, call an apron, and comparing it to the other one, to the old casting, 7x10 casting, I find that it's pretty much in line, the edge of it is pretty much in line with the edge of the rightmost bolt for the headstock. I'm sure this is not rocket science, it's just a cover to prevent the lead screw from picking up garbage from the cutting operation. So it's really not long enough. You can see it ends before the end of the table there, but I'll figure out something for that later. Probably just put a piece of plastic or a piece of sheet metal. Okay, welcome back. I think this is the final hole I have to drill, and you can see I have 3 marks here, but only one is legit. I followed the instructions, and on this particular conversion, I'm supposed to use 5/8 of an inch from the edge, and I did, and it and I also took the gear off this and installed it. I put the lead screw back in, installed this without the gear so that I could draw the arc here, you can see. And I used my silver Sharpie. I love these things. But So I measured from the edge at 5/8 like the instruction says, and I marked the hole right here in the center. This is the one right here. I don't know if you can see that or not, but only one of them is in the center. The other two were my first tries a while ago, but that's where I'm supposed to be, right there, right in the center of the arc. So I'm going to drill this through with a smaller drill bit, and I'll step up to the size I need to put in the whatever this gizmacho is here, this stud with a bolt on it to adjust, to lock down the gear changer lever, gear changer adjustment. So I'm going to do that now. I'm just going to drill it out, and I'll be back to you after I get done with this. Okay, welcome back. So we got the stud in here to drill the initial hole, and then I use the Harbor Freight, again, the drill and tap combination. Welcome back. Just reading the instructions here to find out, you know, what I need to do to continue on here. And next step is simply to install the headstock. There is something I missed when I installed it. When we removed the headstock from the original casting, there were 3 cap screws that attached it. But the one in the rear needs to be replaced. This is a cap screw here. Needs to be replaced by a hex M8, and that's because it interferes with the motor, swinging the motor in and out. The cap screw does, I mean. So we're going to get that in here now. And of course I don't have a wrench, so let me stop this and I'll get back to you. Okay, welcome back, folks. I've been planning my motor installation here, and you can see I already have motor mount installed on the motor. Takes 2 flatheads, very short flatheads. I don't know what what the actual size is. You read the instructions, you can't miss it. Can't put it on wrong either. So, welcome back. I just had a camera error, insufficient memory. So, of course I was, working along, looking at this, focused on this, and I turned around and the camera was blank. So, there'll be a little bit of discontinuity between what I can salvage from the first segment that I recorded and this new added segment. Anyway, in case I hadn't mentioned it, there are 2 adjusting screws in here. This one's an M5 something, I don't know, probably an M510 that they give you. Unfortunately, it's a cap screw, and I'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. They should have given you a regular hex head like this. This is a hex head. This is an M6 16, I think. I'm not exactly sure. I think it's an M6 16. So it's a little longer and a little larger. I don't know exactly what this bottom screw is for, other than maybe to support the motor, because the motor pivots like this on the motor mount, so it's actually going to be hanging on the belt like this, and this top adjustment would push it down, and not exactly sure what the bottom is supposed to do, other than maybe you're supposed to capture the motor between the 2 so that it doesn't hang on the belt. Who knows? I don't know. Anyway, so we're going to install this motor. I've already got the two dogs in here, in case you don't know what they are. And it wasn't in the previous video, because I don't remember what I shot in the previous video. There's a dog on each end here. And they capture this tube on the motor. It's got a hole in it. And so this thing pivots inside here like this. And the trick to this, given that, I'm reshooting this again, so given I'm doing this again, I can tell you that the trick to this is to get the belt on first. Okay, and I already have a problem here because the wire is in front of the adjusting screw. So, you gotta get the wire behind the adjusting screw, like this. Back in here, get it back on the front dog there. Oh, and by the way, it behooves you to install the motor first. Forget about the belt, just install the motor and get the dogs adjusted to where the motor is approximately where it should be. Then I leave the front one alone and I do everything from this rear dog. So right now the wire is coming through the front. It is, isn't it? Yeah, it is, okay. Couldn't find it there for a second. This is going to be, it is a little difficult to get the rear in, but it's doable. And I'm screwing it in right now, but you have to line it up to the motor mount. So, and I need a screwdriver, not a screwdriver, but a flashlight. Where's my flashlight? Oh, just had it. Here it is. I'm way off. So I got to lift this motor somehow and get the rear dog aligned with the motor mount back there. And there's little or no room on the top here. So you're right up against this cap screw they gave you. So I got this screwed in a little too far. Alright, maybe I can get it now. Close. There you go. I think I got it. Nope. Okay, we got it now. Well, you got it. Alright. Well, I think everything's in there now. So this top one, which I'm probably going to have to get with a pair of needle nose, I'll have to wrench it out a little bit to push down on the motor just a little bit. And the bottom one, I guess, supports the motor from the bottom. So it's going to capture between these two adjusters. The whole idea to this, however, is to get this belt to where it there it is. Okay. I was wondering why the motor wasn't turning. Get the belt in center of the pulley. I think it's pretty much there right now. I adjusted it before, so that it doesn't ride on the edge of the pulley. So, from your perspective, from the camera perspective here, it's probably not seeing it, but that's the whole gist of this whole thing, is to sort of get it. It could probably come this way a little bit, so I'm going to loosen the front, and I'm going to this 5mm. Where is it? Is it? This looks too big for 5mm. 6. No, I don't know what I had this out for. I think it's 5. Yep. So I'm going to open this up a little bit, and I'm going to push it with this dog here on this side. Okay, that's probably a little better. Yeah, that's better. That's better. Pretty much right in the center. Alright, so all we need to do now is lock these two down with where's the 2 nuts? There's 2 nuts to lock these guys down. And you don't have to watch me do that, I'll do that myself. Okay, just a couple things before we continue on. I never talked about these, the change gears, but I'm sure you could figure out how to put them back on. And the one thing we haven't done yet is tighten this down. I'm sure it's in the instructions somewhere. I went a little bit out of order, but I need to tighten this hex nut down. And also on this machine, there was only one ground wire between the motor and the front face of the headstock here for grounding purposes. And so I'm going to install this one wire. The instruction says something about three ground wires, but on this machine there were only 2. So I believe it was only 2. There's only 2 nuts here. Yeah, it was only 2. So I'm going to put this one ground wire back on. It grounds the motor. There's a screw right here. You can see it. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. You can. Okay. So I'm going to do that now, and I'm going to tighten this adjusting nut up. And then we can continue from there. Okay, welcome back. So starting to close in on the finish here. See the finish line. I mentioned once before I'm going to put a tachometer on this, and here's the matter of fact the magnets are right here on the gear, top of the gear. Here's why I deviated a little bit from the instructions. Okay, I put a handy box on the back cover. They're going to tell you to put the back cover on next, and the instructions are going to tell you to run the wiring to the front and put the electrical box back on, reconnect it and put it back on. As you can see, I spliced into the neutral on the line cord here, and I've got to go into this electrical box, and what I'm going to do is put an outlet in this. I'm going to put an outlet in this electrical box. So right here I made the splice into the power cord, and the green and the hot go into the electrical box. Now from the electrical box I have another wire that's going to come back into this box, and it's from the switch inside the electrical box, the on-off switch. So this outlet is going to be switched on and off. Whenever the lathe is turned on, this outlet is going to become active. And I don't want the outlet, really to plug in anything other than a wall wart that I have that's going to power my tachometer. So you can ignore all of this, okay? If you're not going to put a tachometer on, this is unique to my build here, so you don't have to do this. So what I'm going to do is got a piece of braiding here, and to protect the wiring, I'll put the braiding over the top of the wiring here. I'm going to route the hot, the neutral, and the ground through the hole, the only hole that we have back here for wiring, and hopefully I'm going to be able to succeed in doing that. I'll get back to you after I've done that. One thing I want to mention, by the way, And I don't know if this is a good time to mention it, but the power for this box will not be fused. The fuse on the front panel, which is, I'm an electrical engineer, and which is unorthodox in this country, and is not allowed, is that a fuse in this unit, in the electrical box, the fuse is in line with the neutral, and you should never put a fuse in line with neutral. You should always take the hot lead and fuse it. But it's China, and you know, they exported these things into the country, and that's what they've got. They've got a fuse in line with the neutral. Okay, and that's one of the reasons why I spliced the neutral in directly here. I didn't want it flowing through the fuse. It's only, I forget what it is, like a half amp fuse. And if I did plug in something back here, I don't want to blow the fuse, okay? You know, other than the wall wart, if I plugged in something other than the wall wart. Anyway, I'm going to shut this down until I get these wires you know, routed to the front of the lathe. Welcome back. There was one additional wire that I almost forgot about, and that's the actual wall wart wire for the tachometer, which I wired in the electrical box here. Well, it's not actually wired, but it's just routed through here. Routed through here and into the tack. Okay, to power the tack. I think it's like 9 to 12. I think this is a 12 volt wall wart. It's like 9 to 12, 24 volts, something like that is the range. This red wire is the power I was talking about, is switched. It's off the switch, it's off the center pole on the switch. And when I turn the switch on, this becomes hot. It gets 115 volts on it. That's going to go back to that outlet in the rear, and that's what's going to power that outlet. So I got all the wiring coming through. Make sure you have this plastic guard on. You don't want this wiring, you know, rubbing on the lead screw. And now I got to snake this wire to the rear and into the box. Okay, I don't know how much of this you can actually be able to see, but I got the box hanging off here on the rear here. Let me zoom out a little bit. And I got everything going into it. I got the red and white wire, like I said, into the box for the power for the outlet. And now I'm gonna attach this. It's got these two Phillips head screws. Again, this came from the original casting. And the way I know where they go is because I screwed them back in the holes. So I just went over to the old casting and got them out of the holes I put them in on for storage. And now I'm going to stuff all of this. Hopefully get it all in here without too much problem. Okay, I got all the wiring inside the box. Don't forget this, by the way. This is a grommet that goes on the box, and it surrounds the lead screw. These are countersunk Phillips head screws, very short. Came out of your original, and of course I can't find my screwdriver. Oh, here we are. Here we are. I'll get the top first, and recall that I drilled holes in the bottom too. I did find the holes shown in the instructions, but it was like an afterthought. And somebody probably alerted them to the fact that they had left it out. But okay, after a little bit of finagling there, I got the cover on. The grommet gave me a little bit of a problem, but it's on. So, might be ready for a smoke test right now. Should be okay to run it. It's getting heavy now, so I want to move around. Ooh. Well, I apologize, I got my fan on. You probably hearing the fan noise. That's more better. Tack, the tack's not going to work, but just need an extension to plug into. Make sure it's off. It's off. All right. Let's see. Power switch was on. That's what I want to see. Okay. Oh, my tack's not on. I had a problem with this before. Connector I used inside the unit. I'll take the box off and mess with the connector again. Pain in the ass. Oh, it's not plugged in. What am I thinking? Not plugged in. There's no outlet there yet. Alright, so anyway. Alright, we're getting there. Not too much left to do now. Front cover on and put the splash pan on. I think I'll let that wait till tomorrow. Yep. Yeah, that grommet's right in here and a real pain in the ass, especially if this is hard up against it. It's there. Probably would put a little oil or something on here too, by the way. It'll wear that grommet out eventually. Welcome back. We're in the home stretch here. Got a couple things I have to do are to put the chip tray back, not the chip tray, but the backsplash on. The front cover here and the chip tray, and reading through the instructions here for the chip tray, they have these brackets they supplied with the kit, and for the life of me I can't figure out how to use these things, and I have to assume that these were probably used on a different model because my original chip tray mounted through 4 holes that went into the castings on this, on the foot of these castings, and the rubber feet just screwed up through the bottom and held the chip tray on that way, and so that's what I'm going to do because this thing, I don't know what the hell it's saying here. And there's no picture. It says mount the rubber feet to the holes in the ends of the hat section chip tray braces. Well, these are the braces, okay, with 4 M5 16 Phillips head machine screws and M5 nuts. Well, I have none of that hardware, so I have to assume that this is N/A for me, not applicable. So let me see if I can bring the chip tray over here. I don't know if this work surface is going to be big enough to do this, but there are 4 holes in this chip tray, just like the old one, right there. 1, 2, and 3 and 4 for the front, and these feet just mounted up through the bottom, just through the bottom of the chip tray into the casting, screwed into the casting here. So I don't know what the hell all this stuff is about with the with these braces. I have no hardware to mount them, and I don't even understand the instructions, and there are no photos to describe it. So I'm going with what I know. There's 4 holes here. There's 2 in the front here, and 2 in the back there, and the feet go up through the bottom, and that's where I'm headed. So I'm going to do that. You don't need to watch me, put screws in, but I'll get back to you after I get that done. Okay, welcome back. If you're doing the conventional install of this extension kit, then at this point you're done. Because I installed the backsplash, and by the way, all the holes in the back are drilled for this, or drilled and tapped, so you don't have to drill it or tap any holes. The 3rd hole is on the headstock itself to attach the backsplash. I did what I said I was going to do with the splash pan. I just screwed in the rubber feet, and that's the way the original was, and that's the way this one is right now. I found no use for these brackets at all, and there's nothing in the instructions that says, that you should ignore them, but I'll be damned if I could figure out how they go. So at this point, everything is finished for the conventional install of the bed. I didn't screw this cover down yet because I'm not done here yet. If you want to hang around or stick around, I still need to install for my tack, install the sensor and wire up this box in the back, but that's pretty much a no-brainer. If you want a video regarding the tack, I made a video because I modified my mill. I put this tack on my mill. So I do have a video. I forget the name of the video, but if you look in my playlist on my page, you'll find a video that says something about tack, installing a mill tack or something like that. So it'll be the same deal. In this case, this one is attached to, it's going to be attached to the top of that box. And you can see I got a couple of ring bearings on here. I don't know if you can see it, but bought these magnets at Home Depot, by the way. I've got plenty of magnets, but I bought these at Home Depot. They have a small hole in them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to snake safety wire in here. I don't want to drill any holes in these cap nuts here, whatever you want to call them. I don't know what they call these things. Retainers. Although I did do that on my mill, but there's not enough room. There's not enough meat here to drill any holes in this stuff. There are 2 of these rings on here, and there's just not enough meat to fit the magnets. So what I'm going to do is just snake some safety wire around it through the loop and be done with that. Welcome back. I'm going to just do a short segment here. This is the finished product. This was a long project, I have to admit. Let me declutter the area here a little bit. So it's all ready to go. And now, the way I did this, final couple things I did here. I cut a slot in the top of the cover here, and I made a bracket for the sensor. And I think I mentioned once before, I've got some rare earth magnets here, a Neo type, and I just put a piece of safety wire around it, and that'll hold it in place. Actually, it didn't even need that because, to tell you the truth, I ran this mill at full speed, and the magnets never flew off the gear, so it probably would be okay without the safety wire. And that fits pretty good. I put this is a 832 screw. I made this bracket. I made it on my CNC router here. You probably can see where it was cut out here. But, you know, anyone can make a bracket like that just with the hand tools. I told you what I did down here. I added this outlet on the back so that when I plug the unit in, I can plug in the tachometer and whatever other tools I need, probably a light, you know, magnetic light, into this. That's just powering the tach right now, and when it switches off, tach goes off. Well, that's it, guys. I mean, that's the whole enchilada. So I got a beer over here, and I'm celebrating. As it is right now, this kit install video is at like 1 hour and 45 minutes just for the install. So I'm going to get to work editing the video. Maybe I can, you know, cut out a half an hour or so, I hope. Otherwise, you'll have to endure all those videos if you want to do this mod. So that's it. See you later.